Beautiful. Hey guys,
All
we're
I
just
got's a little
setting up
blue
here.
screen, but yeah, figure that's
It
you.
should be clearing up now.
Yeah, you're good.
How's the quality? Is it Australian or is it American?
Uh, that's pretty good.
Here, let me move the camera a bit.
You're running 720.
Nice. Why is the second screen taking so long to load? I think I'll try reloading
Go
it.
through your channel.
My channel?
Yeah, like when you're trying to find your own stream and load it up, I go through the little side tab thing and then my channel. Oh, you use the PlayStation one, don't you?
Yeah. No, I need that one because that's got the specific voice setting.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that way I don't have to look down at it, which is really handy. Oh, that is until somebody goes, smiling face with tears of joy. Smiling face with tears of joy. Smiling face with tears of joy. Smiling... you know, etc., etc. Okay. Let's give that a testaroni.
What does the cockatoo say? Nothing, you dumbass. It's a bird.
I really want to hear that now. Just gonna make
Alright,
sure it's
I will
working
be back.
here as well. Jam on. Just about ready to get
Hey
started.
mate.
Hey Nina Bear, how's it going? Welcome to the map making tutorial. I promise this will get more interesting momentarily. Just gonna hang 10 minutes here while we sort some stuff out. Just making sure the equipment is running a-okay.
All good. I'll be here.
Wonderful. Alrighty guys, so let me just do one last test here. I want to see if I can respond with... yeah, okay. Alrighty guys, so welcome to the stream. If you're starting from the very beginning, this is a map making tutorial. Essentially, the beginning of this tutorial will focus on how to tidy up cliffs and make them look nice and neat. As you can see, the ones over on the right here have some work to be done to them, but if you have a look further down this way, I've already making these cliffs look nice and pretty fulls. Yeah, see, that's what they look like from behind, by the way. Absolutely atrocious, but you can make them look so good from in front. Like, you can do some really, really neat things with cliffs. And the best thing about the Far Cry 5 version of them is they finally decided to make them no collide, because in the last game it was an absolute disaster getting these to work. Because when you go to verify a map, everything was colliding. Right, so I'll quickly run you down the basics of my map. So the idea was to make my first ever multiplayer map in Far Cry 5. It's not the first ever map I've ever made. But essentially speaking, it's a massive, massive jungle. Teams spawn in exact opposite located Mayan temples. And they then have a unique sort of forest trail that they're going to go through. And when I say unique, I made the landscape different for both sides. So each team has their own challenges in getting there and finding their way. But they will be balanced, of course. The only way across currently is this one singular, very exposed bridge, which happens to be centrally located in the blue cube. Now, for those of you that don't know, and it took me a bit of figuring out, this blue cube now appears in all map makers Essentially, it denotes where the center of the map is. I haven't quite figured out how to turn that off yet, but we'll get there. I don't normally make maps on PlayStation. Obviously, point and click with a mouse is a lot easier, but I've gotten quite proficient with the controller, so that shouldn't be anything to slow us down by any means. Now, so yeah, players start in opposing Mayan temples. There's going to be pathways going to the bridges. I'm also going to add some secret pathways out to some zip lines so that some sneaky people can be all sneaky-like. And actually, ignore me doing this because I'm only going to have a zip line going from here that way, because one thing I'm going to try and obviously get rid of is spawn camping. Now you may notice there's a serious lack of plants around the Mayan temples here. We'll cover all of that later. Do not worry yourselves about it. And over here, this bridge, there's a serious lack of rocks on the one side. That's because I've only done the cliffs for one side. I'm going to start by doing one half of the cliffs, do a whole bunch of other stuff, and then come back and do the other half of the cliffs, because the cliffs are a bit boring to watch. Even I have to admit that. And yeah. So if we have a look here, this is where I'm up to with my cliffs, sort of editing this area here. But the first bit's already looking really nice and tidy, and then we'll tidy up the soil on top of these cliffs later. That's the sort of towards the end of the map making process sort of thing. It's very interesting seeing how video game maps are layered. I also have to make some sort of a boundary to stop people just walking to the edge of the map and going, "Oh look, it's an ocean! Whee!" Splash. Yeah, that's something that can happen. Right, let's get into it. So, oh yeah, some basic rules to cover. So, as you guys know, with the text-to-speech going, everyone will hear your comments live on the stream, which means they don't have to waste their time reading them. This is a massive benefit for everybody. However, obviously abuse happens. You will be kicked from the stream and / or silenced if we deem it less encroachable if you use more than 3 of the same character, because there are no words that have more than 3 of the same character in them, e.g. Kashyyyk may come up. But yeah, so follow that rule. Remember to behave yourselves a little bit. I don't care about the occasional swear word. So 18 plus warning there, kiddies. But yeah, let's get on with it. Alright, let's start moving some cliffs and rocks. I feel like a god. Well, I am a German turtle. Right, so I've got a little rock here. This is sort of what we're trying to avoid, these gaps in terrain texture here. Now, an occasional gap is not a bad thing, right? So like this here, that looks natural, but something like that, obviously just a mistake in the map making. So, we're going to sort it out. We're going to make these cliffs nice and smooth like, and let's go. Alright, so the first thing I want to show all of you guys who came here specifically to learn how to move cliffs, we'll start with this little rock here. As you can see, it sort of goes in there, and its boundaries start here. Once you've placed your cliff on the, or your rocks on the cliff edge, which would originally have looked something like this, what you want to do is you want to press X to select it. This technically moves it, but if you don't move your controller, it won't move. But let's just say you've placed it there, right? Hit X to drop it down. Right, now highlight it and press square. Now this is interesting. Hit X to edit the coordinates. And what you can do now is you can move it in very minute ways. So for example, if we wanted to move it left and right, you scroll, it slowly speeds up as you go, as you can see. And that gives you the ability to make a whole bunch of different textures. You can rotate the camera while doing this to make sure that you haven't missed anything as well. Kind of cool. Looks like some sort of a Tomb Raider trap, doesn't it? Alright, so we're going to slide that across to cover up that gap. Boom. Now we zoom in a little bit and make sure it looks natural. So I imagine there might be a bit too much of a corner over there. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was suspecting. There we go. Beautiful. Alrighty, so now that we've got those coordinates, what we can now do is move it in and out from the actual mountain itself, so make it more shallow or make it more thick. Since we have such a thick, pronounced ledge underneath, I suggest we actually take it out as far as we can without getting an invisible wall at the back. Right, so as you can see, no gaps visible to the eye. That's what we want. Now, another beautiful thing about this map editor, even with the controller, you can rotate on the axis. So let me show you what that looks like. Look at that. Now, this is the last step to adding a bit of sort of natural characteristics to your cliffs. Cliffs tend to be very rigid and, you know, all straight. Like if you look at the cliffs I've done so far, I've had to bend a couple of them forwards and backwards because otherwise I just have a permanent shelf moving along this sort of second
Hey
tier.
GT, I thought you would join Cash for Mad Max.
Hey Chairman, I didn't actually know Mad Max was multiplayer, but yeah, nah, not at the moment. I'm a bit of an avid map maker, and Far Cry 5 has brought out my creative side, so that's what we're doing tonight. Now you can also rotate like this in case things start to look a bit too robotic. And the great thing is these numbers just really help you keep track of where center is, because center will always be 0. Now, something I like to do, I don't worry about those other 2 rotations too much unless they're completely necessary, but I do like rotating on the Z-axis because that gives you some wonderful sort of texture and 3D imaging sort of feels to it. So yeah, and these cliffs, as long as you're using the same type of rock, they meld together so well. That is one tip I would give people, is focus on using the same type of rocks. So these are all known as generic cliff. I mean, they could have come up with a better name for it. Alright, now this bit here is a bit sticky uppy and all over the place, but that's where you can do the most with the least amount of effort. So to put that into context, what I'm trying to say is this giant chunk of cliff can be moved in a whole bunch of different ways to make a really nice looking cliff face. So if we have a look at the back here, this is what we're trying to avoid, this sort of see-through texture. And the other problem with this is if you leave it like this, players can actually run in here, fall down here, and they'll be permanently stuck, and then your map gets reported. So you don't want to do that, no matter what game you're playing. So make sure you cover up invisible edges. Okay, so again, we've almost selected the wrong thing there. Right, got it. Object options, edit coordinates. I'm going to start by lowering it and bringing it in slightly. So we want to move it along the Z-axis going down until those invisible holes are gone, or invisible walls, or walk-through walls are gone. I don't know. Right, that's about level. We want to get a little bit of dirt on top, just like that, because then you know it's all covered and it looks a bit more natural too. It's already starting to look a lot better, actually. I might even just leave it there. Right, so now we want to bring it in a bit, because it is very sticky outy and kind of doesn't look like it flows with the rest, although I've just noticed the piece underneath might need to be moved as well. Now we want to avoid having the trees sitting on top of rocks, because nothing looks more unrealistic than that. So, for example, that bush there looks quite natural being in the crevice between the dirt and the rock. But if I had, let's say, this going on, you'd basically... Oh, it's actually not that bad, but let me show you what I mean, just so I can make it more obvious. If you've got that going on, people know those trees aren't meant to be there, so you don't want that. You don't want that, trust me, guys. I think we were about 39 or something. We'll go with that, that's fine. Just want to make it look nice and natural. Now again, I am sorry, we are starting with the most boring part of map making, which is the cliff edges, but yeah. Right, so let's make that bush look natural again. Lower it a bit more. I feel like we had more dirt there before, so let's just go ahead and lower that there. That actually looks really good. I think we have, however, unintentionally made a gap over there. The width of this rock is actually quite useful. I might bring it out so we can cover up some gaps. Alright, let's see those gaps disappearing. The terrain textures. Beautiful. Beautiful. Ah, there we go. That looks good again. Yeah. And it kind of looks like the rock's meant to be there too. I love the way they sort of meld together. Look at this. You could almost not distinguish the fact that there's an extra rock there, apart from that really sharp edge. But the thing is, rocks do that, so... I mean, it looks great. Not to toot my own horn or anything. We do have a little gap there. I might have to put a little rock in there just to fix that up later, but we'll do that in the finishing touches. So for now, the only other thing I was really thinking about doing was lowering a little bit. There we go. And let's rotate it along the Z-axis, because that looks more natural. back one. Beautiful. And as long as we can't see any invisible bits, we're good. Now, always do the double check from above. Like these bits where the dirt joins to the rocks is a very horrible place to accidentally leave gaps. The other thing you can do, just as someone who does these maps quite a lot, is you can utilize bushes to cover up little gaps. Let me try and remember where we're up to. So we're about here. We're about to touch on these two here. Right, I'll just remember these two flat bits of rock in the river there. What I was trying to say was, what you can do to see how this is sort of raised off the ground a bit, and it looks all cracked up and damaged. Later on tonight, when we get there, I'm going to add some bushes and things, and what you can do to help yourself is you can sort of smooth things out with a good plant or two. So I think a mangrove bush here will do wonders. Where are we? So see, if I was to plonk that here and then put a whole bunch of them around there, you wouldn't notice any of those chipped off edges or anything. You just notice, you know, you're in a forest with lots of beautiful things around. See, it's already made it look less edgy. So that is something you can do if you've got too many terrain texture gaps, although I do just recommend doing a solid and actually getting the rocks out, as I will now demonstrate. So I think I used nature, and then it was rocks, generic, and then that's where I got my cliffs from, as you can see. So we only need a wee little one to fill in that gap that we found, which was... No, I'm keeping that gap, I decided. There was another one. Not there. I'm probably covering it up with a rock right now. Ah, there it is. So it's not a very big rock that we're needing. Yeah, if only that was a little bit bigger. No, a little bit bigger. There we go, this is perfect. So plonk that there. Quit out of that.